All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to anyone that will be listening to this podcast this week, next week, in 10 years, in a century, in 100 years, I don't know. But um, thank you for coming on our screens again to watch our podcast. I know that it's been a while since we came on here, but we wanted to be intentional with our approach. In fact, we've graduated into a point where every podcast comes with some level of direction before we come out here. So thank you so much for being patient with us. And also thank you for taking out time to watch this podcast. I have a friend here. I call her Christy, so I'll just call her Christy, right? Probably when she's introducing herself, she will say how done this, but I love calling her Christy. I've known her, I think the last time we met was in 2011. Doing our youth service. That was the last time we saw after our youth service, everybody separated and went their different ways, and we started doing our own thing. I know Christy teaches. I know Christy is an entrepreneur. I know that she's actually very spiritual, and I know she's a daddy's girl, which is going to be part of the conversation that we're going to be having today. So, I would enjoin everyone to take time, listen to the podcast. If you listen to it one time, go back and listen to it again because there's a huge probability that you will learn more than one thing in the conversation that we're going to be having. So Christy, like I said, is a friend, a good friend of mine that I've known for the past 13 years. I think 2010, 2011, so 13, 14 years. And like I said, she's a teacher. She's an entrepreneur. She farms also. Christy, you still farm, right? Yeah.
Yep, I do.
So yeah, but that's a bit of an introduction. I just wanted Christy to also expatiate on the introduction to us all so that we can hear from her directly. So Christy, thank you for coming. Thank you for accepting our invitation. So please introduce yourself to our listeners. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Obina. It's so nice to connect with you after such a long time. And I don't think you did a very bad introduction that I have to introduce, but my name is Christiana Chundung. That's a very typical name of the Plateau people in Jos, Plateau State.
Mm.
Like he rightly said, I am a teacher. I teach or I'm a lecturer. I lecture with the University of Uyo
Wow.
in Akwa Ibom State of Nigeria. And I'm also an entrepreneur. Well, almost 10 years now. And then I'm also a farmer. I farm both livestock and not so much active because of the engagement with the teaching job. And then he mentioned that I'm a daddy's girl. I'm truly a daddy's girl. I didn't even really look at it so much like that. But I mean, when we had the conversation with you today, I actually called my dad and I called my mom and I was just reminiscing over some things. I told them I was having this conversation with you and I really was wondering, am I really a daddy's girl like that? And my mom just laughed. And and she said, yes, that I am. So, well, let's see how it goes. Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor.
Yeah, thank you so much. You've been one of the pivotal moments that I had with you was I think there was one time we were doing one of those outreach programs, and I think a couple was passing through our city, and I think he had an accident. Then we went to the hospital to go see him. So when we came out, it was that well, it was a bit overwhelming though in terms of what was happening at the time, right? And some of the crisis and every other thing that was happening at the time. And I was like, I was just saying something, and you were like, oh, you said, that's the reason why God brought you here, right? That was a short sentence you just made. It's you. While I was saying what I was saying, I was saying like, oh. this, we have to do this, there's a lot to do this. So there was a lot to do at the time. Then you said that was the reason. That's actually the reason why God brought you here. And that's the reason why you are here. So that was, if I don't remember any other conversations we had then, that moment was something that stood out. And whenever I find myself in certain situations where sometimes it might be overwhelming, sometimes I'll be like, ah, God, why me? And there's this voice that will come and say, okay, fine, you are supposed to be here, right? You're qualified to be at this point where you are at this point in time. So the fact that you're having these bashes here and there, you're having this push here and there, it doesn't mean that you're not qualified to be there. So you are actually supposed to be there. So and I think that was part of the reason why I started thinking about you by the beginning of this year, right? Where we started having that thought. But as much as the thought was strong to invite you to the podcast, I wanted to make sure that it was the right move to make. Even though it took a while, because I know it was just recently that we had that conversation where I just chatted you up and said, Christy, this is something that we're planning. Would you like to? And you said yes. And it was pretty smooth and it was timely. Right. So I want to say thank you so much for finding out time to out of your busy schedule to come sit with us and have this chat today. So
Thank you.
yeah. So my first question will be like after youth service, right? We all
Yeah.
had different ways. What was it like for you? I mean, fresh out of school, fresh out of youth service. What was the next step for you at that time?
Like every typical Nigerian graduate, the thought was I would come back, I would apply for jobs, I'll get a job, I'll get married, and then life will just continue. But even though inside, I really wanted to go for a second degree. I wanted to go for my master's program. But for me, I thought the best thing was let me just get a job first. Once I get a job, then I'll go for my master's degree. Maybe when I'm doing my master's degree, I'll find someone, get married, and I'm finishing my master's and I'm already married, or at least even if I'm going for the master's, but shortly after, I was the dream I had, or the plan. I started applying for jobs. But immediately before I started applying for jobs, there was a school that had given me employment before I went for youth service. So when I came back, they said I could still continue working with them. It's actually in school that I finished my primary school from, and then they started a secondary school long after I had been done with primary school. So I went back there. So while I was there, I started applying for jobs here and there. And Obina, it was like, I mean, I didn't think it was going to take so long, but I did not get any job. I had so much hope. I had interviews. I traveled to Lagos for interviews. I traveled to Abuja and, of course, in Jos too. And nothing was coming forth. So instead of just staying back and managing, like we said, the small stipend that comes from the secondary school, I decided to just put some money together and buy a form for my master's degree. But interestingly, my dad had actually told us something. We are three, by the way, three children. I'm the last, oh, I'm the third out of three. I don't like to say I'm the last, I'm the third out of three. My dad had told us that he always said it, that he and the promise he had made with God was that we would all go through school. We would all go through our first degree. That's the best he can offer us. Any other degree was going to be you are on your own.
Mm.
And so my sister got married and she was doing her master's within that period in her husband's house. My brother had already gotten a job, so he was working. So I was the one that was still with them. So when I told them I wanted to go for my master's degree, my dad said, well, he had already told us, yeah, so I should look at my sister. She's in her husband's house, she's doing her degree. So me, he had told us that everybody was going to be on his own. So this master degree I'm talking about, if I can afford it, fine. And I told him something. I remember I jokingly talked. I said, well, my sister is bearing a different name. So
Mm.
it's that definitely that name that is going to bear the burden of a master degree. But for me and you, we have the same surname. So you are the one that is going to, he said no. So I went ahead and bought the form and I brought it to him and I said, I've bought a degree form, I mean, a master degree form. I said, but he told me that he's not sponsoring. I said, well, I don't know what's going to happen. I've already bought the form. Long and short is that at the end of the day, he ended up contributing together with my mom. And I was able to go back to school. So I quit that, finished. But I was so hopeful, Obina, like, now I'm done. I'm going for the master degree. Sure, all those people that rejected me with my first degree, when I come back with my master degree, they will be shocked.
No, yeah.
You know, I mean, I have something solid now. And do you know, I finished the master degree and then to the glory of God and shame of the devil, I didn't get a job still. I did not get a job, so I went and volunteered. So I schooled in Jos. I was in a smaller town. That was the town I was actually born, Barkinladi, before. My parents were there on transfer as pastors. So
Mm-hmm.
I remained in Jos where the university was. I said I didn't want to come back home because when I was leaving for the master degree in Jos, I told my parents something. I told them, this is the last time I'm ever going to come back to stay with you people. I've stayed with you people for the time I'm supposed to stay with you people. As I'm going for this master degree, whether I get a job or not, I'm not coming back again to stay in this house with you. So I finished the master degree, 2 years, and I didn't have a job. I was in my uncle's house at the time. And without the job, I said, okay, now I've told my parents that I don't want to go back home. Now, what do? I don't have a job. I'm not in their home where you have peace and comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, you are with your parents. Now, how do I do? I'm in my uncle's house, and it's not like a first degree that they understand, but this is a second degree, and there are expectations. So what I did at that time was I decided, okay, what can I do? I started assessing myself. What can I do? What skill do I have? And I didn't know what else I could do apart from to teach. I didn't want to go back to that school I was teaching. So I started teaching. So I said, okay, I can teach. Maybe I should just apply for schools within this place in Jaws so that I can teach. But I kept applying to schools and I was not getting any job, even though I didn't have the master degree certificate, but I was telling them I was done with my master degree and I was still not getting a job. So one day I read uh, Dr. Miles Muro's book. I can't remember which of the books, but it was talking about, don't just be idle, about young people that you could volunteer your skills. You don't have to do things for payment and things like that. So I said, okay, I don't have a job. Even if I want to volunteer, where am I going to volunteer? My goodness, how will I volunteer? I'm in somebody's house. I was working at least as with the first degree. I was being paid 20,000 naira at the time.
Mm.
Now I have quit my job. I've come to school. I can't even get a 20,000 naira job. So what do I do? Okay, let me just volunteer and see. And long and short was there was a government school not so far from that, my uncle's house. And I just went there and I told them, okay, I wrote a letter that I wanted I didn't go as a volunteer at first. I just said I wanted them to give me a job to teach, even as a part-time teacher or a PTA teacher, as they call it. And the principal said no problem, that they actually needed an English language teacher. So I could come next week and start work. I was so excited. I didn't even ask how much they were going to pay me. For me, I was just so excited I was going to start a job. And next week, when I came, I entered the office and I asked, I saw that things had changed. I was wondering what has happened. I said, I wanted to see the principal. They said, did I have an appointment? I said, yes. When I stepped in, Obina, it was a different person that was principal. It was a lady. And I greeted her. I said, I wanted to see. She said she's now the new principal, that principal was transferred last week. And he's now in the directorate. He's no longer here. I said, Ma, I don't know if he handed over a letter to you. She said, no, that no letter was given to her. What's the trouble? And I told her that, okay, I had applied to be an English language teacher, and he had said I could start work today. I should see him, that I would be able to start work. And she told me, no, they don't have need, they don't have money to be able to pay even the ones on the part-time teachers on ground. So there's nothing they can do. She's very sorry. He didn't tell her, even if he had, she would not even be able to accept that. I left that place. I said, God, what am I going to do? This is like the only hope. And I went to that school because it was trekkable from my uncle's house. I didn't want to go anywhere that I would be having to pay my transport fare, which I didn't have money. And I didn't want to call them home. The pride was too much. I had told them I wouldn't come back home, like that prodigal son that left. I said, I'm not coming back home now. These people are not giving me this job. What do I do? So it was at that point I said, okay, why not come back and say I want to volunteer? So the very next day, I went and drafted another letter and I came back to that same school. And when the woman saw me, she said, what are you doing here? That's a new principal. I've told you to go away from here. Like we don't have space to pay you. I said, Ma, please could you read the letter? I wrote the letter, put my credentials inside, and then gave her. She said, what letter? I thought you said you had written a letter and the other principal didn't hand over the letter to me. And I've told you there's no space for you. I said, please, Ma, just read the letter. And when she just collected it angrily, tore it open and read. And she now looked up and said, what? You have a master's degree? I said, yes, ma, I just finished. And you want to come and volunteer in a government school? That I've never seen anything like that. Too. But since you are saying that, I'm telling you, don't think that we are going to pay you. We don't have money and all of that. I said, no problem, ma. She said, okay, when are you ready to start? I said, ma, even if you mean I should start immediately, I'm ready to start. She said, okay, why don't you start next week? I said, no, I mean, I can even start as early as tomorrow. She said, okay, it's fine with her, but she's still telling me, there's no money to pay. I said, no trouble, ma. I would come. As I was saying all of that, I was asking myself, why are you saying okay? Where are you going to get the money for your upkeep? You won't be asking your father and all of that. Obina, the long and short was I ended up spending the whole session, the whole 3 terms. The first month after I worked, she called me after the first month when they were paying other workers. She now gave me 2,000 naira and thanked me. So the assumption was that I probably was working elsewhere and just wanted to volunteer my services there. Because I would have my bath and look so good and just come to work. Even some of the staff thought probably I was on NYSC. Some thought I was a part-time teacher. I never disclosed anything to anybody. I didn't want anybody to even know. So even my uncle, whom I was in his house, I just told him I had a job. I didn't tell them that I was volunteering. So
Mm.
the first month I was paid 2,000 naira, and I received that 2,000 naira. I thanked God. And I remember very clearly, I said, God, it's like my salary. I'm going to remove my tithe of 200 and give to you on Sunday. And then I went to the market and bought some soap and detergent and something. And I brought it to the house. And I said to my uncle that they've paid me. And this is the little that I said, let me buy for the house. He was so excited, but he wasn't happy. He said, no, I shouldn't. He knows that it wouldn't be so much. I shouldn't be buying anything. So, well, that continued for the whole term. But along the way, I learned how to make popcorn, and I started making popcorn and I started carrying it to the school. So that also ended up helping me to get some small income. So I was even making a lot more from the popcorn. I can't remember. I think maybe at the end of the month, because I was giving a lady to help me sell, one of the cleaners. And I think at the end of one of the weeks or so, I could have maybe 3,000 at the end, or three, four. The highest I think I got was probably 5,000 or so at
Mm.
the end of every bag that I made. And so that kept me going. So I would go home for weekends. My dad would ask me, how is it going? I said, fine. But I told them the truth. I was volunteering. They said that was okay. So that continued for that phase. I volunteered for that whole 1 year. And then after that was another journey, because I had to come back home, but not home to my parents. Now, my parents had moved from that town to another town on transfer. But because family house was there, I ended up moving back to family house, where tenants are, my parents were no longer there, because I told them I was not going to them, but I ended up asking my dad, which may be another conversation for the next. But at the end of the day, I taught for that 1 year and then came back and started a shop in my father's house, where my father was not around, but he played a very instrumental role, which maybe when we talk about the daughter and daddy-daughter thing, I
Yeah.
would make the emphasis about my coming home.
Yeah.
Thank you, Obina.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. But that just sparks a lot of memories here and there. But it basically is a good introduction to the conversation we'll be having today, because it touched on different areas where we actually conversing today. But that's nice. I didn't know you actually went through this though. I didn't know. I didn't know.
Yeah, thank
Wow.
you. I did. Yeah,
Wow. So yeah, so so every so for someone would say, okay, for a lady, right? Um, I mean, you were going through
yeah,
that, but I mean, what stopped you from doing it? I mean, you said I mean, coming from a religious home, anyways, right? But
yeah.
what really kept
Mhm.
you going, and what stopped you from doing things that would normally be outside your values at the time to keep up? I mean, for a lady, that amount at the time every month.
Mm,
So what stopped you from looking out?
yeah.
Yeah, and what made you kept going, thinking that at some point you were going to get out of that whole phase or situation at the time?
Okay. Thinking about it now, I feel that um the environment, I mean, your upbringing,
Hmm.
or let me say my upbringing, has a lot to do with what the kinds of things that you feel are, is it safe enough for you to do, and not some things that you don't even consider at all. I was having a conversation with someone not so long ago. I said there are certain things that I never even considered doing, because they were never even uh, one was raised and programmed was in a certain way, that we saw challenges as challenges that were you could surmount, and it's a period of time. And then again, honestly, I would always appreciate God for the books that I read
Hmm.
and then the messages I was listening to. I was reading a lot. I read in quite a lot, quite I wouldn't say a lot. Maybe I read and then I love listening to messages. And so there was that time, one was free. I was reading a lot of books from TD Jakes, from Miles Munro, from within that period, from okay, I never really read Rich Dad Poor Dad around that time, but those two, T.D. Jakes, Miles Monroe, and some the one Elizabeth George that my mom gave to me, and so many other books within that time. So the thinking pattern was not even to look at things, oh, okay, I'm disadvantaged, what can I do? But that there's actually, these things are temporary and there's always a way out. So
Hmm.
that was really what kept me going. So I never even really considered, oh, and then again, because I wasn't raised to be, let me say, in that materialistic way. My parents are ministers. So, like, okay, the girl, you need to look good, you need to do your hair, you need to, just basic necessities that a girl would need. I
Yeah.
don't know. And somehow, honestly, I just kept I would say God just has a way that He keeps His own. I wouldn't know how, but somehow He kept me. And because my siblings too were really very supportive. My brother was already working. My sister, though not working, but because she was married, so once in a while, sometimes my brother may just send maybe 2,000 naira into my account and say, okay, buy your recharge card or something. So I never just really found myself stranded.
Hmm.
But sincerely, I think what kept me was those messages and the books I've read, and for the fact that the background I was coming from did not even allow me to have any kind of mindset apart from that this is temporary and it's a phase that will pass. And that was how I just kept going.
Hmm. Well,
Yeah,
that's a good one though.
yeah,
Um, The reason why I asked that question was because looking at this situation, I mean, situations like this will not continue. I mean, if someone is watching this video in the next 10, 20, or 100 years, the situations will be
yeah,
different by the grace of God. But looking at our present day situation globally, but localizing it to Nigeria as it stands, um, where the economy is, I mean, going through a phase, and they're young
mhm.
ladies fresh out of school, trying to get themselves together. What would you say to those ladies in terms of, let's say they're trying to take one step and it's looking like things are not turning out well for them, and then
Okay,
they start thinking about things that are sometimes outside their values because probably they want to fend for their families. As ladies, they also have needs for their personal needs and stuff like that. So, what would
yeah,
you say to ladies like that to stay on with their values and just keep at what they are doing, right? To move on.
yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would want to say that the truth is everybody goes through one level of challenge or the other, and it's actually most times the test of your values that you may get into extreme situations. But sometimes um, ladies, let me say, at those times, you maybe you were used to a particular kind of lifestyle before that you had all that you needed. There are times that when you are not able to meet that need, you may have to just break down or come down from that the high budgeted life, because there's nothing that is as disturbing as you have this particular taste and you are not able to meet your taste. Maybe you use a perfume of this amount, you carry hair of this amount, and you've gotten to a place where you don't have the means to do that, and you have to cut down. It is at those times that you shouldn't say, insist that it must be what I used to have that I must have, because sometimes that's what drives people to
Mm,
live a life that you know you really cannot afford. And then again, there are genuine people with genuine needs, that these are needs. It's not about, I'm not like living, trying to live to impress anybody. It's just the need, and I'm not even able to satisfy my need. But I'll always say, once you hang in there and truly you trust God, that God is able to orchestrate things, then he will actually orchestrate either people or circumstances that will align with your values and meet your needs. That's me believing that this God, he's really, really someone that you can trust. No
mm.
matter strong moral values, when they say, okay, I'm sticking to this, I'm never going to go below this, which is very hard to do, especially when your needs are facing you in the face. But then when you stick out your head and say, no, I'm not going to go beyond this, I need a way out. I need somehow, God has a way of aligning the universe to go in your favor. And you may just find a little opening that you're able to get your needs met. But once you begin to, you compromise, sometimes you compromise the first time, you find yourself compromising in every other way. So my advice is always stick to those values, and that believe in God that he's not going to give you, put you in a situation where there's just going to be totally no way out. No, he will always create a way out. And sometimes it's just a test for a particular phase, and those phases are temporary. So I always say, why take a very, very permanent decision that you will regret for a long time or for the rest of your life for a problem that was going to pass anyway? It is definitely going to pass. But if you end up doing something below your values, that will stick to you for the rest of your life. So when you wait, just hold on a little bit more. You will find a way out. That's my encouragement.
Yeah, that's a good one, actually. That's a very good one. Every phase in life actually ushers you into another phase, and there's always there's this thing they say in project management, lessons learned. So there'll always be lessons learned as
Lessons learned. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So let's even get practical now. So, Christy, you went into entrepreneurship, right? I mean, fresh out of school, you started.
Yes.
So, and you are consistent because based on your story, when you were introducing yourself, you were consistent in the little things, and
Yeah.
I think it growed. It built in you. Okay. It built in you some level of a savings culture because you said like every week you make a certain amount. That means from your capital you
Yeah.
buy more products to sell for the next week. So tell
Yeah.
us about those practical steps in your starting phase as an entrepreneur.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, okay, I would say my entrepreneurial journey, because I grew up with a mom who is also entrepreneurial, even though because of the nature of the work she was doing, she couldn't really, they were missionaries and then they became full-time pastors. I mean, so she was a full-time pastor's wife, so she didn't really have so much concentration on the entrepreneurial aspect, but she has been an entrepreneur. So I would say it started from there, but those times situations end up pushing you to do things that you probably didn't think you would do. But right from school, who could make beats? So that I would say that was where I formally started from. Who could make beads? That time beads were in vogue, and necklaces and earrings. So she took us to our friend who could make them, and the woman taught us how to make them. She took us to the market, we bought, and then my sister and I started making beads while we were in school. So that was where it started from. And I was much more of the creative person. I would make the beads, and then my sister sells the beads, because I didn't really know how to make somebody buy something. I mean, I would be so shy. I would carry it in my bag. I would be so shy to bring it out. So my sister was the one that was doing much of the selling, and me, I'll be the one doing much of the creating. So when she comes back and she says she was able to sell this, I'll be so excited. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. But circumstances end up sometimes. It's because of circumstances that we sometimes get pushed to do some things. So I mean, well, even when I started with that popcorn in that school that I was volunteering, I went to learn how to make the popcorn from my cousin. We spoke, and she said she's making popcorn, and she takes it to a particular primary school and she sells there. And I'm like, okay, how much do you make? She gave me the breakdown of how much I could use to start. And it was, I think it was probably, she said I could start with as little as 1,000 naira or two. And then I called my mom and I start. And I too little. I had sold bread, which is another story for another day. I had sold bread before coming for my master's. When I was home, because I jumped into the popcorn. That was not the first. I remember when I was home after the first degree, I started teaching. Before I came for the master's, I had to leave teaching. I got sick. I was diagnosed with an ailment, hypothyroidism. I had excess thyroid. So my dad had to make me quit that job that I was teaching before going for the master's, and I went to stay with them, waiting for the admission for my master's degree. So within that period of waiting, it was so terrible at home. And I didn't know what to do with my life. I was not teaching. I was just on treatment, hoping to get better. Then I had a friend who came to visit. He was a military man because of the Jos crisis that we got used to. He was a security man around the church we were before. So he came to the new church we were to come and visit my parents and I. And then when he was leaving, he gave me 2,000 naira. I will never forget. It was in 2020 naira notes. It was my birthday. And I told him, I said, those 2020 naira notes that you were collecting from, you know how police in Nigeria are. I said, you were collecting from taxi drivers, and they are coming to give me. And I'm sure some of them were insulting. They were angry when they were giving you that money. So I kept that money. If I looked for an envelope, I said, Kai, I don't really want, when he left, I didn't want to use that money. I felt the money was filthy. So I kept saying, what will I do with this 2,000? And my mom had bought bread pans before, because she did a mini bakery one time. So I said, why not let me start baking bread and selling? I've not seen homemade bread being sold, but because I could make bread, I shared the idea with my mom. My mom said, okay. So I started making bread, and I went door to door. I used to carry that bread. I would make the bread in the evening, package it, and go door to door in the mornings. The environment was a student environment, and then there was a pastor school. So there were so many students and lecturers and pastors in training. So door to door, every morning I'll go knock on their doors. It's another story for another day. I think I even wrote it on my Facebook one time. I'd go door to door and then sell that bread. So that was the beginning of that. And when I was teaching, but at least little money, I came home. You have to ask for everything, even razor blade. You have to ask for money for razor blade from your mother or your father. It was so embarrassing. So I started making that bread. I remember with that 2,000 naira, but my mom contributed. She helped me buy a half drum, which was like the oven, a half drum with a lid, and there was a lot of firewood within that vicinity. So I would make a very huge fire. When the fire is about going down, I'll put the drum, put some sand, put my bread when it has already risen, and cover it. And then after some time, it's manual, it's not an automated thing. So
Yeah.
it will bake from the heat of the coals. And then I'll bring it out in the evening, the morning, and packaging and going. Sometimes that evening, I'll still take it round to people. They will buy it as it's hot. And so that was the beginning, actually. So by the time I now went back for my master's degree, my father ended up asking me to stop that business because the fire was becoming so hot. As dark as I am, Obina, I became black. I was exposed to fire, heat, a lot of stress. My dad said, "How much are you making from this bread?" I was not making so much, but at least I was making something and I was busy, I was occupied. So that kept me for almost 4 months or so before my admission came, and I quit everything and I went to school. So now that I was done with the master degree, I now started that popcorn business. So, of a truth, it was at the popcorn business that I had to really keep records and understand whether I was really making gain. The gain was not so much compared to the stress of the making of the popcorn and all of that, but it was something as compared to just being like that. So I now feel that it wasn't in really the gain, but it was much more of the discipline and of now learning to do an exchange. I was now much bolder, not like I was when I was in school, but I was now much bolder to sell. I was shy, like how will I be selling to my naira, and I would sell out the whole pack, maybe the whole pack that I bring in sometimes in a day, and then my gain may just be 500 naira in one day. I do another one the next day, maybe the gain is 450. Some will be missing sometime, some will be destroyed, but progressively, at least at the end of the week, I was sure to have maybe 4,000 or 3,000, just depending. So it helped. So this, I now learned that it wasn't much of the gain, but it was much of the boldness now, the confidence, and then the fact that I knew that I needed to do that to survive. So it helped me to keep my head above the waters. So for me, like you're saying, how can, and maybe a younger person, I would say sometimes you learn it's not in the money, but it's in the discipline you will end up getting along the way, because those are the disciplines that are still keeping me even today, that I was able to start with that little, and now even as I'm doing much bigger, the discipline is still the same thing that is helping me. The same confidence I built over time is the same confidence I'm now having.
Oh, so
Yeah.
so I'll ask you about structure after this question though, but so the way you said it, like you said, oh, you're more of a creative person, you're more of a so creative people sometimes, I'm not trying to generalize this thing, I'm not trying to put everybody in one bucket, right? But sometimes very creative people are sometimes a bit chill and a bit on the reserved side. They sometimes don't want to come out there because they rather go into their safe space and come up with something, right? And then present it to the world through someone to just Take it. So, so creativity was your strength, but
Yeah,
salesmanship at the time was a weakness. So,
very, very interesting.
so would you say building on your weakness was something that you were trained on, probably something that you needed to study, or maybe situations? I know you said the story about it, but this is just trying to expatiate on that. Would you say building look, first you understood your weakness. That's one part of it. You knew what you
Yeah.
were. So in terms of building on that, would you say it was based on training or based on experience?
I would say it was based on experience, not really training, because sometimes it's circumstances that end up pushing you and giving you an experience. Not that you deliberately said, let me be trained on this particular thing, but circumstances will come sometimes that will push you to do things that you end up getting experience. So for me, it was circumstances. Honestly, if I didn't have a circumstance that was going to push me to the wall, I probably would have just loved to remain and just be the creative and have the creativity in my mind and um, rather have somebody. So, do you know, even in that secondary school, I started by being so shy. Like, how would I, as a teacher, I'm carrying popcorn to sell to the students? But then the experience at home already had given me some level of confidence. For me, I mean, for you to walk up to, I was the pastor's daughter, and the church was quite large. So for me, as a pastor's daughter, to go on people's doors to knock and ask them to buy bread for me, at that time, it was, I mean, the first door I knocked was my um okay. In fact, let me even start from when I baked the first batch of the bread, for instance. I could bake very well. I baked the first batch of bread and I kept it at home. So my mom came back. My mom was lecturing at the time. She came back from work and saw the bread. She said, your bread looks good and all of that. She said, okay, so what's happening? I said, I don't know what to do with the bread. She said, you would bake bread, so you are keeping it in the house. So who knows that you are baking bread? I said, what do I do? I had all my plans laid out of how I would make the bread, but I didn't have a sales plan at all. I
Hmm.
did not know how that, and I didn't know that I didn't even have a plan of how to sell. Till when I baked the bread, I'm like, who is going to come and buy that bread? So my plan was that the people, when they come to church, they will now see the bread. So it was my mom that I leveraged on from the first part. She would take it for their women's fellowship and all of that. So after that, it's not just women that will buy the bread. Some of them just admired and said it was good and they didn't buy. What happened? So from there, I now knew that I cannot leverage on just being a good producer. I would have to find a sales plan. So the sales plan was, what do I do? I don't know. I don't have a shop. I don't have an outlet. My mom said, okay, if you can carry the bread and go and sell. I said, how will I just go out and carry bread and go to other people's houses? So what helped me, Obina, at that time was um, there was in that environment, early in the morning, women come to the door to door and then they sell vegetables. They will sell onions, tomatoes, green leaves, and vegetables generally, because our people in Jos are more, we are vegetable people.
Hmm.
There are lots of vegetables grow. So they come door to door. And then because most of the people are workers, most of that community was basically teachers, because it's a teaching. There are so many schools. There's school for the blind, school, primary schools, secondary schools. Is like a church, that a missionary area that missionaries settled there and built so many schools and higher institutions. So most of the people there are teachers, or workers with schools. So, because their schedules are most teachers go out in the morning. So
Mm.
these vegetable vendors will come early mornings and sell vegetables. So there we had a customer who would come and sell. So what I now said to her, one of the women, I said, I have bread to sell. Oh. I don't know how I'm going to sell the bread. I can't give you bread to sell with your vegetable. She said, if I can follow her now, then we'll be going door to door. So that was how it started, that I then had another person who knew the terrain, who she knew the houses that buy. So I followed her. So the first house we went, that was what cured my embarrassment of part of my embarrassment of sales. When the door was opened, who opened the door? It was our chief usher. Okay. Was she has very she has she has the they said, mommy, so and so, we know you have come early in the morning. Then she now said, that's not all I have. Oh, I also have bread. And they started laughing. They said, bread, when did you start baking bread? Is it bread or vegetables or what? And she said, I have bread. You people should come and see the chief usher in my church. And he saw me and said, what are you doing here? I said, I came to sell the bread. He said, you are the one selling bread. I was embarrassed. The ground could be opened. Let me enter. Because I felt how
Just, let's just continue. Hopefully, because this conversation is becoming very the depth is just, I don't know, man. It's becoming very nice. I feel really. So like, so you took the bread to your cautious place and you felt like the ground should open because you felt ashamed, right? As the
I
pastor's.
tell you, I felt as a pastor's daughter. I felt so ashamed, but I mean, they bought. So generally, the people bought out of curiosity. They had not seen anybody like that coming to their homes early morning with bread. They were used to vegetables. So some just bought. I don't know. I feel they just bought because I was their pastor's daughter, and then some. Okay, let's give it a try. It's something new. So that's really helped in building my confidence. So I was for the first period. I mean, I was following this woman everywhere she went. I just kept following her. I'm following her. The next day she came, we went. The next day she came, we went. So before I now ended up developing confidence to start going on my own, that I even had customers who would wait. They would tell me they will be waiting for me to come with bread and all of that. And gradually my embarrassment and the lack of confidence started fading. I was now so confident. They started calling me the bread person and all of that. So by the time I came to Jaws to now, after I mean in that school to sell popcorn, I was a little bit more confident. But again, it was a little bit of, because these are students I was teaching, so you are teaching us and you are coming to sell popcorn. I think the school, maybe they just humored me because the principal knew I was working as a volunteer. I don't even know if it was against the rules or not, but I had informed the principal that I'll be bringing popcorn. So the first time I sold, I remember I felt quite embarrassed. And how much was the popcorn? 10 naira. Like you can imagine collecting 10 naira from your students. But
Yeah.
I did that. And then over time, um, I just got used to it. And then because of how my schedule was, I had to be giving the cleaner to help me sell during time, break times and all. So I would say that it was experience, not really training. Experience ends up giving you the training that you need. It was not anything formal, it was not planned, but the circumstances I found myself ended up giving me that training. So I feel sometimes, usually it's the circumstances that gives you the best training.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I saw that there was a track, right? You started from home, went to school, you started, then after your parents moved from the house, you now went in there. So was it
Yeah.
when you moved into your parents' house or before when you were selling in the school that you started having structure for business? Structure in the sense that you are able to calculate how much you were making every week because you said something about how much you were making every week. Was it from the school time that you started having structure for the business or for your business acumen, or when you moved into the house when your parents moved? So that
Okay.
conversation will just continue from there. So, but yeah, so Christy, yeah, I mean, like we were talking before we came on now. So this the like I said, the steps you've put out are practical steps. And like I said before everyone came on again, I said something about coaches, mentors, and sponsors. So your mom came back,
Yeah.
the lecturer, she came back,
Mm.
you made your bread. You made your bread and you kept it at home. You covered it and kept it at home. And your mom was a lecturer. Your mom, is she still a lecturer? All right. So she lectured, she came back home at the time.
She retired 2 years ago.
She retired two
Mm.
years ago. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay. All right. So, but your mom at this point, at the time that you were venturing into one particular step, I mean, after doing the beats when you were younger, as you grew older, you started doing bread. The thing is that when you
Mm.
made your bread, you kept it at home. So you needed somebody to motivate you. You needed some level of, that's why it's even important for you to have that voice that would speak to you. Yeah, we stopped. So
Okay.
you've given practical and proven steps in terms of building a business and branding. And even there's this thing we talk about in business, coaches, mentors, and sponsors. So your mom was that voice that spoke to you. You needed that,
Yeah.
yeah, that voice to tell you to go out, and you did. Then you had a coach that was there on a daily basis
Mm.
to give you confidence. And also she was also your sponsor because she spoke up for you in places where you couldn't speak.
Yes.
And that was how that woman that sells vegetable also helped you. So as you did that,
Yeah.
she left you and then you started doing it on your own over time. Then
Mm.
talking about marketing in its sense, putting yourself out there. You already had a brand. You had integrity because
Yeah.
you're a pastor's girl, right? So people knew.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's branding itself. So that was, I always tell people that you are your own brand. You are who
True.
you have to, so anything you do adds to what people know you for. So
That's right.
yeah, so you might do one. I'm not saying people shouldn't live their life, but sometimes the things you do also affect your branding. And sometimes, most times, the thing you do, God uses them to progress you or push you to the next level. So everything you said,
That's right.
yeah, are practical understandings of how to build a business and also how to put yourself out there. Right. So yeah. So and you had two levels of fear. The first fear, like I said, was when you were starting out. The second level was when you started selling to your students. So
Yeah.
there's always that kind of thing. Even now that you're lecturing, do you still have do you still have that fear in you while you lecture? Now that you're a lecturer.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was saying that you had different level of fears while you were starting out, and the second level was when you were selling those products, the popcorn to your kids in school. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? That's fine. What I was asking is,
Yeah,
what I was asking is, you had those fears while you were starting out as a business person, as an entrepreneur, from one level to the.
yeah,
Now that you're teaching as a lecturer, do you still have those fears?
not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know that when I started teaching, when I started lecturing, I got the lecturing job when I had already become a full-time business person. I had a shop when I left Jos from that volunteer work. I came and opened a shop in my father's house. So
Mhm.
I was selling all kinds of things. I had a one I would say a one stop shop.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a wrapper business that I had in mind because I didn't want to sell any consumable. I told myself I didn't want to sell bread again because if you don't sell bread within, and for me it was fresh bread I needed to sell. So once I am not able to sell, for that day, it becomes, it's a loss. So I told myself I didn't want to sell anything fresh. I would rather sell things that even if I don't sell, they will, I can still sell subsequently. So briefly, I started selling wrappers. And from the first few weeks, I was making sales. But after some time, so long and short, it ended up becoming a full
So go on. Go on. Go on.
Okay, it ended up becoming a full provision store. It's the long story how I even started the shop. I started the shop with not a single naira. I didn't have money. I just told my parents I wanted to come back and start a shop. They said it's fine. My father said, "Help me to put the shop together." But all I can do is, since it's in my house, I will get the shop ready. The shops were under lock and key. So I couldn't.
Yeah.
Yes, so the shop that I started with clothes, with wrappers actually. So my mom promised she was going to give me some money to buy the wrappers and put in the shop. So my father said his own contribution was he would just fix the shop for me. He doesn't have money to give me to buy anything to put in the shop. So it was fine. So without 1 naira of my own, I started. My brother now gave me some money too. So I started with the rappers. But I tell you, after just a few weeks, I was wondering how I was going to survive, but they were in another place. So I was now living there with tenants who was also living in the house at the time. So I was wondering how I was going to survive on the wrapper. My mom said she loaned me the money. I was supposed to give her with some interest. Now I'm not working. I'm selling wrappers. The interest is not so much, and I need to survive. So I now knew that I could not survive on only wrappers because they are not sustainable for me at that time. I needed something that would give me daily income. So that was where I thought, even though they won't give you so much, but they will give you everyday money, there would be an exchange. And so part of the little that I made from the wrappers, I converted it. I went to the market and bought provision because I discovered there was no provision store in that vicinity at all. So that I now started selling provisions. I remember one of the days my brother came. I mean, when I told my brother, he said, "No, you started as a buy, don't buy wrappers every." And I don't have it's not a very large place or a market that people come from elsewhere. It's just those people. So that was how I started. So that also boosted my confidence and all of that. And then, so after that, when I got the job, I like the lecturing job, it was like, oh, thank God. Now I have a job. And all things, I'm no longer going to be, they had been, my name was Ngozi, this and that. You know how provision business can be very busy and then very tasking. Early morning, you have to be in the shop because students are going to school, they need to buy things for breakfast and all of that. So I was so happy that I got the lecturing job. And then a few months, I think just how many months into it, then the 8-month strike started. 8-month long strike started, and I knew that I didn't know what to do with my life again. I had not really didn't have any savings like that, and I was in a town that was far away from home. So it was also, what do I do at this point? My story actually ended up going viral on the social media. I mean, within that period, because I went back home and then my parents went to the farm with my parents. My parents are farmers, and I told them I'm also a farmer. Then when I was running the shop, I even started a farm too. I planted cucumbers and some beef tomatoes and all. But this time I went home and my parents said they were farming. I said, okay. So I was thinking maybe in the next 1 month I'll return back to work. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, I was still at home. And like joke, the potato from planting to harvest, I was there. And then when I saw how they come to buy these potatoes, and from where I work in Uyo, I know how much I buy potatoes. In fact, I swore I would never buy potatoes because of how expensive they were. So it was a shock to me when it was time for sales, and these middlemen came and they were offering some ridiculous price for the potatoes. And I'm like, what? You people are taking this thing to places that you sell almost a quadruple of what you buy.
Yeah.
I told my parents, you know what? I'm going back to Uyo with these potatoes. I'm going back, and then I'll try and sell. And if I'll just take a few bags, and just 2 bags, and try and sell. And if it works out, if I sell well, then people can send me some more potatoes. And I came to from Jaws and all of that. And a reporter got wind of the story and came and made a story out of it. Uni lecturer sells potatoes during strike period. And all over the place that day, my God. I mean, I got calls, like people were, I didn't see anything strange in it. It was so unstrange for me to do that. And it became a very, very serious story that it was even reported on the news that a university lecturer sells potatoes to survive the strike. So for me, it was just a progression. I had already built so much confidence. I didn't see anything in that. My students called me, some out of curiosity. Is it true? Are you the one? I said, yes. And so, what's the big deal there? I mean, we are not being paid for 8 months, and I'm home, and I have some to also learn how to sell there. It's a new environment and how to go about it. But it was really a very good experience for me. So that tells you how I graduated now to a point where I didn't. So even after the strike, I continued. And I've been in business. I've been selling crayfish and some of the products from here in the southern part of the country down to my people in the middle belt who don't have. And then I've tried to also do the vegetables, bring back vegetables, but because of how dicey the vegetable business can be, and I'm at the nature of my work, I decided to lay low on that. So that actually has been the journey, the entrepreneurial journey.
Wow, your story is a good depiction of the verse in the Bible, everything working together for good.
Yeah,
I didn't even know that you were on the news, Christy.
I
I was just like,
was.
look at my fellow you copper. I didn't even know that you were on the news. Oh. I didn't even,
I was. I
followed
was.
I followed your stories on Facebook. I always followed your write-up. You
Oh,
there's this you would give it this heading, something father's daughter and my father. Yes, there's something you always
I'm
say.
my father's daughter. Yeah.
I always read your write-up. I always go on Facebook
Oh,
when I see it, I bump into it and I get to read everything you've said. Really,
oh, wow.
good, that's a good story. So that means everything basically all your experiences over the time, it has brought you to where you are now. And there's even
Yeah.
more for you to go because I mean, there's still more for you to do in this world because I mean, you're not, oh wow. That's a great story. So now let's get into so what is even before I get into your that, what is success to you, right? Um, Christy, what is success to you?
Um, Success to me is finding what I believe I'm born to do and doing it to the best of my ability.
Wow.
Hello,
I can hear you. I can hear you.
over now.
I can hear you.
Uh-oh.
I can hear you, Christy.
Okay.
So, like I said, Christy, like your
Yeah.
story, right? It's a good example of what they learn in business, marketing, and even as a Christian girl too. Like I said, that part in the Bible where it says everything worketh together for good. So everything you've actually experienced as a child has built
Yeah.
this level, and it's still going to continue building you up, right? Because now you're still more of an
Sure.
entrepreneur, a lecturer, you're still teaching. And now the daddy's girl part, you talked every part of the conversation had a link with mommy and daddy, in fact, family. But I wanted to focus on daddy because most of your articles are based on your relationship with your daddy. How important is a relation?
Yeah.
How important is the influence of a father on his daughter?
Hmm. Um, this question was I had to ask myself, especially when you said we're going to have the conversation, because I've not really looked at it that there was anything that special. I didn't think so. I just thought it was normal. In fact, I truly I just look at my life like just normal. But I didn't know that some of these things have had or the way my life has turned out or is turning out is because of that relationship that I've had with my father. I mean, I have a very great relationship with my mom. I have a wonderful relationship with my father, but I thought it was normal. So you said how important. I think that like you said, as a Christian girl, for me, the relationship with the father truly is uh, one, I don't know, I would say after God, maybe for a married person, after God, then your husband. But for a child and an unmarried person, after God, I think that the next pivotal person for me has been my parents. And then my father, in a way, has modeled for me what God is to me as a person. The I grew up with an available father, which I didn't know that there were some that are not. My father was, I mean, has always just been there. I woke up, I knew that my father was always there. He was always my mom, providing. My father is a typical, there's nothing special, like I would say. He's a typical Nigerian or African dad that you are not even too close like that. You are not doing the mushy, oh, I love you, father, and all of that. But um the way he related, or when we were growing up, the way he related with us was just, I'm your father. So everything we knew that the discipline we needed, the school fees my father was providing. They were working together, collaborating with my mom. My mom was the kind of person who was not too much of that disciplinarian person, but because we knew my father was the picture, you cannot even tells you, you even beg her most. If you don't tell daddy that I do this thing, she'll say, no problem, I won't tell. She will go and tell him. During morning devotions, they will call you and say, okay, you did this to your mom. Tomorrow you will still repeat something and still beg my mom that she not tell my father. She will still tell him. So that was just how we grew up. So I feel that, and then it's now that I'm older, that I'm understanding that part of confidence that I've had in my life, or I have as a woman, as a single person, has been because of the solid relationship of knowing that I've had a father. I went to school, I never knew that there were people that I didn't even know. That's how ignorant I was. That some people were the
Yeah. Yeah.
is recording, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, no, it's fine now. You just started now.
Yes. Okay. So it's so important. They say life is lived forward and understood backwards. So I'm just looking back and understanding mostly now that the place that my father has played, I mean, the role he has played in giving me confidence, in giving me backing. So I never knew, like I was trying to say that when we were in school, even intentionally, I thought everybody was coming from a normal family like me. Their father is the one. We never, we like even the business my son I to get extra cash. Not like we had everything provided, but I provided those things. So when I got whose fathers were alive and were not doing, they were not paying school fees, they were not providing the normal things that fathers should do. I was surprised. And I'm just wondering, oh, okay, maybe no wonder I turned out the way I am. So even today, when I called him and I spoke, he has done and all, and he has just been normal. That's what he feels fathers should do. So he has not seen anything he has done that is really abnormal.
All
I
right.
said, well, that's just the way me too, but I'm just discovering that some people don't even have that they live, or their father's not just paying attention, but my father paid attention. He was intentional. I wrote about morning devotions, for instance. You have morning devotions, you come before and he would be there. I've been in families now that the father will say the children should go and have devotions with the mother, or the outdoor things that you think the father should take charge of. Maybe generator is spoiled, and I'm seeing that women are the ones, a woman. So all the manly things being done, my father, he will just be doing, and you'll be following. I have a brother who is my immediate, the person I'm following. So he would be teaching my brother, and me too, I'll be learning. So along the way, I could be able to do even the manly things to the best of my ability, and then the girly things that I am. And like I told you, when I started making bread, a point came, my father said, stop that thing. You are getting ill. You are getting sicker. I can see you're not looking okay. So stop it. So the place that the mother will be there loving and loving, but the strict hand of the father to say, no, do this. And it so gave me so much confidence that I truly, I'm just saying this to you, that because every girl, somehow, that's the model you've seen of a father. Even in relationship, that's the kind of person you are looking out for.
Mm.
I am now just giving you an example. Like, I had a relationship of a person with a person who, at a point, he said, do you think I'm your father? And I didn't even really understand. That was in my younger days. So I didn't know what to even say to that, because I was thinking, my expectations were what my father was doing, the kind of confidence I have, or the way I talk with my father was, he said, you are talking to me, I don't talk to me like that. And I'm like, I don't understand. Even my father, I talk to him like that. And he said, do I think that he's my father? So long and short, that the father provides even the model of how you look at men, and even, I think, to a very large extent, to even the kinds of persons we end up marrying, because we would usually have a semblance of the person that we are coming from. So I now see that many people that are even coming from dysfunctional homes, if God doesn't have an intervention, they end up getting to meet men. I don't know, they attract men that are somehow like their dads, even though they would say they don't want to, but that's what you grew up into. And then that somehow, that's what you end up attracting somehow. I don't know. So I just, I don't know, Obina,
Yeah.
that's just it.
Oh, you said quite a lot. I mean, it's a ripple effect. If it is not if certain things are not worked on at a particular level, it just transcends or transitions into the next level of the person. So yeah, so
Yeah.
like the fact that where I found out about, like I said, on Facebook, the articles you write about your relationship with your dad, even in when you went into entrepreneurship and all, but that what you always write about in terms of a relationship with your dad always stands out, right? So I would always read it. I would always see you would put in some nuggets of wisdom in terms of how to
Yeah.
relate life, and you always relate everything to your relationship with your dad. And it was an important read for me, basically. It was an important read. I will always look forward to reading most of those of your articles. So it was nice. Yeah. So
Yeah.
not to take too much of your time, just that
So,
one last question that just went into, we just breezed out of it because of network, where I asked,
okay.
what does success mean to you? What does success mean to you? Can you still hear me?
Okay. And I said, um, to me, success is finding your purpose and then being able to work in that purpose that you have found. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Hello?
Yes. Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is like the last step, and this is my last question. What you were saying something about success, what success means to you. You said is it has to do with purpose and making sure that you do it to the best of your knowledge. Is that what
Yeah,
yeah.
I feel that success is finding your purpose, finding what you were meant to do or you are here to do, and then working in that. If you're able to find it and you're able to work in it, then I think you're successful because um, generally success, we talk about maybe the wealth or the money that comes, or it's people that are wealthy, are doing well in terms of maybe the things they've gathered that the world looks at as success. But for me, honestly, if I'm able to find that thing that I was born to do and then do it, if I know it and I'm in it, then I believe I'm successful. And
Wow.
then I believe that every other thing that comes as a result of that is just to help me in that journey. If I'm able to do that, then I'm truly, truly happy that I'm successful.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah,
So basically money is a tool. Success is not material, but success is purpose and success
it's purpose.
value. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a fantastic one. Christy, thank you so much for the words of nugget, as you've always given, as you've always been, right? I would we'll always link up our publications to and we'll link it up to your social media handle so that people can always go there and see what we're saying here so that they can, if they have time to go through and read some of the articles that you've put out in relation to that
okay.
and your journey. So when we are putting this out, we'll also link it up with the article. And I would enjoin everyone to go over the video, listen to the video over time again. There are so many things you've said. Like I said earlier, in terms of business, all right, where you linked something that has to do with coaching, mentorship, and sponsorship. You said that in your conversation here. You said something about
Yeah,
marketing, branding, and also branding also have to do with the value that you give and also your integrity as a person. Because
yeah,
if people don't feel that you have integrity, they won't necessarily want to do business with you. And integrity has to do with your personal values, right? What you think you stand for, right? If you see yourself as worthy and you do the right things, people will see you like that, right? Even though, and also life experiences also is actually the
yeah,
best, right? You were able to work on your weakness of not being to be able to sell,
that's right.
and your selling abilities came from your journey in life, and now you're using that selling ability because you have to be able to talk to teach as a lecturer. You have to be able to talk to
Yeah,
sell your product. So thank you so much, Christy.
true.
Any final words of wisdom to for the world to hear you?
Thank you.
Is there anything you want to leave us with? Because we're going to invite you here again, Christy.
Cool.
We're going to invite you here again, Christy. So any final words?
No trouble. It, um, my final words are that life just presents a platform for us to live out our values, the things we believe, and then it connects us to people that will end up living, helping us to live those values. Because in my circumstances and people, and for me to live out whatever it is that is in me. And so whatever it is, you actually have in you what it needs, what you need to conquer that stage. So it's as I'm growing, I'm discovering that at every stage, I didn't know I had it at that time, but truly I had been prepared for because you are there, you truly have what it takes to be able to conquer. So don't ever look back and shrink back and then maybe see another person in his own path and say, oh, it would have been better if it were this person, or if I were in this person's shoes. You don't know what that person is going through, and you don't know what that person has been trained for. You have been trained for that particular thing that you are doing at the moment. You know that it's within you, but it's within you. So you don't longer, you'll actually pass through the phase. If life is lived in phases, so whatever phase you are, just hang in there, you'll pass through it. And it's my prayer that you pass through it successfully. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Christy. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, guys, take time
All
to
right.
our podcast on YouTube and Facebook. So, thank you so much, Christy. Thank you for your time. All right.
All right.
What's up?